当人工智能的浪潮汹涌而至，我决定亲临这场变革的核心，见证斯坦福顶尖科学家如何连续创业，对话硅谷风投如何捕捉未来，探访市值超100亿美元独角兽企业如何突破边界。3场对话，我们用不同视角推开硅谷生态的大门。
您觉得这个在硅谷哪些科技赛道可能是比较占有优势的？然后今天因为我们一会儿要去拜访一个公司 MedTech， 它又是在硅谷的这个风投圈里边占了一个什么样重要的位置？
硅谷其实是一个很重基础的深科技的发明创新的这么一个核心地段。它的主赛道呢，肯定现在来讲，那就是人工智能相关领域，像 OpenAI 呀，像 Google 啊，像 Meta 这些总部都在啊，还有英伟达嘛。之所以硅谷叫硅谷，就是因为它在几10年前从仙童半导体开始，它是从半导体起家的。
原来是这个原因。
是的，是的。对，那在这个大的生态系统上，大家最看好的一个方向，可能就是人工智能和医疗方面的结合。不管是医疗科技还是生物科技，其实都是有非常大的潜力。从这个投资的占比来讲呢，当然其实每年不太一样，然后统计口径会略有不同，但是 roughly 呢，就是医疗科技占整个投资的比例16%左右啊，
其实相当可观了。
对对，因为就是医疗在美国 GDP 的占比能占到25%，所以这是一个非常大的赛道，因为它既有意义又有
收益。
对。
在医疗科技领域 ，Theresa 也早有布局。她投资的 Avvio 便是由全球顶尖科学家携手创立的公司。
那您当时是什么机缘巧合上挖掘到它的？
其实这也是缘分。我们在做尽调的时候，觉得它是一个品质非常好的啊，因为它的这个3个联创啊都是非常资深的科学家，一个是就是 Caltech 的一位获诺奖的化学系的教授啊，知名大牌教授；另一个呢是斯坦福工学院的副院长，也是待会儿会去那个采访的这一位；第3个呢是 UCSF 泌尿科的一个大牛，一个 KOL， 他们3个共同创立了这家公司。那这个公司其实它的技术是非常有独特性的。
我看它主要是专注在这个肾结石的治疗上。
对，肾结石碎石领域就可以使得这个肾结石的治疗不用到大医院，就可以到普通的诊所啊，甚至可以问诊当天就可以进行治疗。那对于肾结石这个整个治疗的这个等于模式就做了一个巨大的颠覆。所以我非常喜欢硅谷的地方，就是在这里，你每天都会遇到很多新奇的那个这种能够真正改变世界、改变我们生活和对各种各样的这个工作方式的各种创新。
对，所以不仅是这个挣钱，赚钱的时候，我们可能也真的是为人类的发展做了很多的贡献。
对，特别是在医疗领域这个可以说是对于人类做贡献，并不是仅仅的局限于某一个国家地区，所以这个呢其实是更有价值的。
马上见到今天的主角 Thomas Kenny， 美国国家工程院院士，斯坦福大学工程学院副院长，纳斯达克上市公司 SiTime 创始人， Avvio 联合创始人。
Hi, Susie, nice meeting you. Is Tom here?
He's on his way. Yeah,
Oh,
he'll be
no
right
problem.
in. So we have
Thank you for your
Nice to
time.
meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, Jade.
Yeah, I remembered. Maybe you can wait
Jade,
in
nice to meet you.
a conference room.
Oh,
Shall we wait
absolutely.
here?
Yeah, right in here.
Yeah, Jade and Susie. I'm sorry, I didn't introduce so well earlier.
Yeah, you can introduce later. This is Stanford.
Yeah.
And this is
Avvio.
Avvio.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will
I got
hopefully have dessert hat soon.
Morning.
Hi,
Morning. Good to see you. How are you?
This is Jade, our
Hi.
potential
Nice to
investor.
meet you.
Rahid
Nice to meet you.
is the VP engineering,
Okay.
and he's also a Stanford graduate, right?
Yes,
We
sir.
have a lot of you're a student.
I was his DA.
Ah.
Randy.
You know,
Very
that
similar.
is very interesting part of the Silicon Valley network. Like professors, students.
Yes, we have a lot of that type of ecosystem here.
Yeah.
Professor kind of paved the way, and student that make things happen.
That's right.
Yeah.
When I was interviewing, I didn't know this was his company.
Well,
At least not till I saw the website, saw about it. I was like, I know this guy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, a long while ago.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, well, welcome.
good to have you.
Thanks. Actually, I graduated from NYU, so East Coast. But because of COVID-19, so I haven't been here for 5 years. So it's very exciting to be here again and meeting you.
Yeah,
Thank you. And maybe I'll get a Stanford executive program in the future.
Yeah.
Okay. Be
Friday
alumni.
night.
Yes.
I always think sometimes we have this unfair advantage that, we have Stanford's a great place, but all the smartest people in the world come to Stanford. They pay us money to hang out with us and to make us smarter. And then when they leave, hopefully there is a little bit of intelligence gain, but mostly we get a lot of credit for the very smart people that come in. And it's, it's really,
That's a very humble but
that's very true.
I'm always very interested in the Silicon Valley ecosystems. People all over the world know Silicon Valley is well known for its blend of risk capital, the top tier talent, and a collaborative culture. Also, it is renowned for its diverse tech landscape as well, but it does have its dominant tech sectors, I think, for example, medtech. So from your perspective, how had the ecosystem here specifically enabled medtech ventures to flourish?
So I think some of the story goes back a long ways. 50 years ago or more, the dean of the School of Engineering, a gentleman named Fred Terman, decided that it would be wise for Stanford to have a much stronger embrace of industry, applications for industry, research that would support industry, and direct collaboration, so that Stanford researchers would work in teams with industry to develop new products. One of his advisees was Hewlett and Packard, and they formed HP, this long time ago, of course, but I think the important cultural distinction was that it was okay for talented Stanford researchers to work with a company on a product and not just science and ivory tower things. So the university has embraced partnerships with industry, and our faculty and our students are always talking about startups and always meeting with venture capitalists. A lot of the big venture firms are right there next to campus on Sand Hill Road. So it means anytime there's a pretty good idea at Stanford, it gets a chance to be funded as a startup. Someone finds a way to have the conversation where the entrepreneur, someone who understands the application, and an investor, where those three people can get together. It happens all day long, every day. And it's just opportunity. And the same for medtech. We have a medical center. We have researchers that are interested in biology and medicine, and they're at Stanford. President John Hennessy of Stanford has done startup companies. I've done 3 startup companies. So the ecosystem has thrived because of this co-location of the venture capitalists, a university that embraces collaboration, and then just lots of smart people.
Yeah, I also heard that Silicon Valley exists because of Stanford University. So, do you believe that's an accurate reflection, or? It
goes back to Fred Terman and his decision to open the doors of the university to industry. But the Silicon Valley industry was already starting to take shape at that time. You had already high-tech companies starting to locate near Stanford just because of the talent pool. But what Fred changed was the relationship between Stanford and the companies, which created a thriving interaction and opportunity for the ecosystem. And then the venture capital community, which only was created back in the 60s and 70s. For some reason, they decided to form near Stanford. And it's, a lucky coincidence. But it just means that from my office, I can ride a bicycle to Sand Hill Road and I can visit people who make $10 billion of investments every year. And that's a remarkable opportunity.
Of course, of course. But that is my question too. So for Boston, it's also a renowned med tech center in the world, and Boston also has top tier talents. Because yes, of course. So, what do you see as Silicon Valley's unique advantages for innovation compared to other global hubs like Boston or?
I think it actually is this embrace of the risk taking and the opportunity to launch a company and try your best, and if it's successful, that's great. If not, try again. That sort of embracing the effort instead of just the success is an important California thing.
Oh, that is California thing.
Yeah, I think, in Cambridge, I have good friends there, but I think if you try to start a company in Cambridge and you fail, there's a stigma that lingers. Whereas in California, near Palo Alto and Stanford, there's no stigma. It's, as long as
that's something you should brag about.
Yeah. So like I said, my first company was not super successful. We had a technology for cooling microprocessors. We raised about $30 million of venture money. Every year, the competition was to make them a little bit smaller and make them run faster. So they were getting hotter every year, much hotter. And so our technology was a thermal management technology. When they switched to Pentium, all of a sudden the chips got bigger and slower again. The Pentium transition changed the need for thermal management, and our company died. We sold, so we raised and spent $30 million, and we sold the company for $21 million.
Actually,
that's a loss.
Yeah, but
So
not too bad.
failure, right? That was, but technically a failure.
Yes.
So, I went back to Stanford. People had questions. What lessons did we learn? What was the experience like? What would you do differently? And then 2 years later, we had a technology in my group for making timing products from micromechanical elements. And
Your second startup.
Yep, and I went right back to Sand Hill Road, and all the investors asked questions about the first startup and what were the lessons. And then we raised money. NEA and Greylock backed a company called SiTime. Took us longer than we thought, but that company is on the NASDAQ right now.
Oh.
It's $4 billion market
great.
cap, and they make
$4
timing
billion.
products that are in all of these products.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's SiTime oscillators in here, in your camera, in this camera, in your laptop, in your phone, in here. They've sold billions of oscillators.
Did you sell your?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was a founder, and the way the dilution worked out and the way the capitalization was structured, I ended up not becoming rich, but famous. And so after that experience, when we were launching Applaud, then I went back to Sand Hill and we talked to people. We raised money once again, and the investors are always asking, "What did you learn?" And that's the healthy question.
Yes.
I think in other cultures, not California, the questions are more, about, the mistake you made and, how maybe you weren't as smart as you thought you were. This is a little more of a negative balance to the conversation. And I think that rewarding of enlightened failure is what makes the Silicon Valley ecosystem unique. Because most people have failed. Very, very few win the first time.
And people cannot see all those failures. Right?
And even according to statistics for serial entrepreneurs like Professor Kenny, they have higher chance to get the next startup being the unicorn. And you proved that correct.
Yeah, so lessons learned. The first startup I learned about capitalization. I learned about raising money. I learned about talking to investors because I'd never done that.
So your knowledge, experience, rich.
Yeah. It made me a better entrepreneur and a better founder. The thing that really matters is integrity. So when I'm talking to investors in the first company, the second company, and now the third company, I'm being honest about the actual situation. Here's what we can do. Here's what we're working on. Here's what could come of that. But we have problems to solve, and sometimes it takes longer than you think. But at least, and Theresa could tell you this because we've been discussing this company since 2018. And I've answered many, many questions over all those years. And, was I truthful and honest? I think that's an important, if you're not truthful and not honest, then you cannot repeat that. That is a stigma.
The trust is the foundation of everything, of the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, there's another bad example, the blood test.
Yeah, I forgot the name.
Big scandal.
Stanford, right? Stanford.
She was a Stanford undergraduate. That's right. She left before she graduated. She talked to one of my faculty, one of my colleagues, a person who works on microfluidics, and she had an idea that if you could do ABC, then it would be wonderful. And my colleague who works on microfluidics basically said, well, the A part of your ABC won't work. There's some fundamental problems, and she ignored him, and she found a few people who had credibility that were interested, and then she used their credibility to approach other people and leveraged that sort of accumulated credibility. Less knowledgeable, but highly, there were, Bill Perry, who was the Secretary of Defense, there were very, George Shultz, who not a technologist, but very high reputation individual, joined one of her boards at one point. And it was because he didn't understand the technology, but he saw other people who seemed credible. This collection of credibility that didn't have a solid foundation.
Right now, Avvio, I think your integrity and your transparency of everything in the past was a foundation that we eventually made this decision, even though it took much longer than anyone expected, and it was the hardest time right before COVID. So it's a hard time, but you turn the company around.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I was a founder, and so I was involved early, and it had a good start, and then it got into a little bit of trouble, and our first investors became impatient and grumpy, and they forced a replacement of the CEO with one of their entrepreneurs in residence. And that was a reasonable looking person, but he wasn't really a startup person. Yeah, this was 6 years ago, and so we replaced him about 5 years ago.
And Tom acted as the CEO at that time, and he's the reason we finally decided, this is the company.
We were able to turn it around, raise some money, and get some things done, and raise some more money. And now we have a real CEO. Paul Malloy, it's too bad he's not here, but you would recognize him instantly as a real CEO. He knows how to execute and deliver and exit. He's sold 5 companies into the market. He knows the market of medical device technology. He's a great CEO for us.
But before you took the CEO role, right?
Got us to a position where we could attract a real CEO.
Yeah, and in the hardest time.
Yes.
So that's my question. And the Associate Dean of Stanford School of Engineering and the founder of
Avvio and the
entrepreneur. So how do you balance the responsibilities and cultures of academia and the industry? It's hard to balance. I think the perfect.
But it's kind of a bad day at Stanford is not very bad. A bad day in a company, so we were running a clinical trial in the U.S. where we were treating patients under general anesthesia in a surgical procedure. Sometimes patients don't wake up from anesthesia. Sometimes, yeah. So a bad day at a company can be really bad.
Really bad,
If we had one event like that, we probably would be gone.
Yeah.
Because
Lots of lawsuits.
so the dynamics was much harder, and it was very stressful. So I think the hard part for me was figuring out how to spend part of my day dealing with very high stress, lots of danger. And then the other part of my day, talking to students about their homework.
It's a balance.
And so I had to be able to, I think compartmentalizing is really important. So that there's part of my brain working on the company, and then part of my brain is working in a completely different way. And I think I'm lucky. I don't know where that came from, but it is. I seem to be able to have the horrifying conversation in the morning about the bad news at the company, and then sit down with a student and talk about their homework. And not the student doesn't know what my morning was like.
Oh, that's unique.
And the thing is, it wasn't. At first it was sort of mostly Stanford and a little bit of a company, and then it went to sort of both. So that it may look like balance, but it's just a lot. And now it's a little bit more, sort of again back towards Stanford for me.
Okay.
Because the company is running itself. I'm here.
Now have a professional CEO. You are still staying as a chairman.
Yeah, so I'm involved. There was, a dinner this week. I'll be working on a paper. We got a paper accepted for the American Urological Association conference. You'll hear about that at the board meeting. But
Okay.
so we'll have a poster presentation, and they've asked us to submit a manuscript for the top journal, which is and a fast track, easy publication. Which publications are good for academics,
Yes.
but they're also important for getting reimbursement on medical products.
Yes, of course.
So that was a big thing.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
big
So
milestone.
the balance, it's
It's
more,
hard,
yeah.
but you figure it out.
Yeah.
I think doing several things simultaneously is really hard, and people must have some unique capabilities like you.
And I don't know where that came from. But I'm grateful.
I mean, naturally. I mean,
Yeah. But I
must
think
be
that
natural.
compartmentalizing is really important.
Yeah, manage different mindsets, right? I've been actively exploring technology investment opportunities in China and in Singapore even, and I have engaged with numerous scientists across various fields. And a common observation is that scientists and entrepreneurs often have very different mindsets. So that is a significant obstacle for Chinese scientists looking to launch startups. But in the US, there seems to be a much smoother integration between scientific research and entrepreneurial execution. So in your view, what factors contribute to this difference?
Examples of both good, smooth transition people and people who aren't good at it in both places. We have professors here that are terrible entrepreneurs. Yeah. It's unusual to get them together. There are great entrepreneurs in China, even professors who become entrepreneurs. There's many of them.
Fewer, I think.
Maybe a little
Not a
smaller
lot.
percentage. Maybe a smaller percentage.
Yeah.
I think there's
Stanford has more.
yeah, Stanford, it sort of, because of this encouragement and this recognition that failure is a learning opportunity, I think that's part of why it works at Stanford. So historically, there's been more of a culture of kind of innovation and exploration in the U.S. than in the educational system in China, from 20 years ago maybe. Those things are changing in China also right now. Sometimes I'm on a visiting committee for Tsinghua or Fudan, and the curriculum at those institutions is changing. It used to be very rigorous and formal, kind of step-by-step building up of math and science, and now there's more teaching of projects and teamwork and decision-making, and so the next generation is more likely to be better at this, I think, because of the changes in education.
So I think education is very important it's a big part.
It's what happens in junior high school. Are you always working all by yourself, or are you working in a team? Are you asked to think about just the answer, or maybe sometimes think about the implications? And then that will change.
Yeah, I think the U.S. Education system is very different from the China education system because I studied in the U.S. before too. So lots of teamwork, team presentations. Yeah, that's a good thing.
In a company, you have to be able to work with people.
Yeah.
It's not you're all by yourself
Individual.
with your calculations. It really is a team exercise.
correct.
This and
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Learning how to communicate with and negotiate with is very important.
Yes.
since you already founded 3 startups, so what are the biggest challenges in translating academic research into a successful company?
I think the most important thing is to say no to most ideas. Because they're not all going to turn into good companies. And I think, especially at a place like Stanford, there's good ideas every day. Even just in the class I teach, the students bring ideas for how to use sensors together with instrumentation to make products. And I'll have 60 students write proposals for cool ideas for putting a sensor in a coffee cup or something like that. And any one of those might turn into a pretty good company, but most of them really aren't worth the trouble. And there's a few that really are. So I think one of the hardest things is being choosy. And recognizing that if you're going to work on a company, you're making a big commitment. You know, it's not a let's see how it goes for a few weeks or a few months. I mean, you're in all the way, and that means you do anything you have to do to be successful, and it takes up a lot of life, time, and energy. Like Avvio started because my wife has kidney stones. She's good friends with the head of urology at UCSF, Marshall Stoller, who's co-founder, and some ideas came out of that. And because it was personal for she and I, we were willing to invest the time. And we knew at certain moments that if we're going to do this company, that means there's other companies we won't do during a multi-year period. So it's an opportunity cost judgment. I think with investors, I've heard good VCs say that they make money mostly by saying no. You know, it's the no's that could obligate you to lose a lot of money. Those are the things that will take you down. You need to make a few good yes decisions, but the most important decisions are the no's. And there's a lot more of them. You have to say no.
Yeah, right.
You have to say no to some pretty good ideas in order to be available for the great idea.
So thanks, Professor, for letting us visit your lab. So it's very exciting, but it's a pity we cannot show the lab to our audience.
It's still in the confidential stage.
Yeah, I know.
We have investors that have backed us, and we want to be sure we don't lose the opportunity by talking too much.
Today, I saw the disruptive innovation in the lab. So what do you believe makes it a potential game changer for patients?
Sure, it's mostly about access. That this is a procedure that you could carry out in a clinic in a rural setting. It doesn't have to be in a hospital with an anesthesiologist and all the fancy imaging and all the rest. We could do the procedure right here on this table.
Here?
Yeah. You don't need any fancy stuff to do the procedure, right?
So?
And lower cost.
Yes, totally.
That's very
Yeah, so it's everything. It'll make the patients' lives better because they'll get a successful treatment more quickly. It improves the outcome for the doctors because they can treat more patients. Gives them the ability to cure more people and also make more money, which they care about. The hospitals see this as a big advantage because they can turn over more of the patient population and treat them early and still capture significant revenue from that intervention. The insurance companies and organizations like Medicare, this is going to be a big cost savings for them because current patients, the normal procedure is $30,000 procedure at UCSF. I know because my wife has been there for this. Our procedure will be 1/3 of that cost to the insurer. And so it's, everyone wins. That's very important. The patient, the doctor, the hospital, and the insurance provider. If you can make all 4 of them happy, and then the investors will, but if you can make all 4 of those participants happy, then the market will be very successful.
So you have distinguished the Chinese VC partners, so like Theresa, and you just mentioned China. China market is huge. Right? There is a large number of kidney stone patients in China, I think. So are you considering introducing Avvio's technology to the Chinese market?
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a part of our China strategy. We even have a China strategy team. Yeah. But it will take step by step. Let's get the FDA done first.
Yeah, so the engagement with China, it is, I think it's a little bit about the story of Stanford also. We're the most well-established private university on the West Coast.
Yes.
We're much bigger and stronger than Caltech or USC. And we're facing the East. We face the Asia-Pacific region. Harvard, MIT, they face Europe. And so Stanford has a special responsibility to maintain strong relationships with China, with Singapore, with Thailand, all the Asian countries. And so we actually have quite a lot of investment from China in the company. And the application to the market in China is a high priority for the company because of that. It might be a third of our cap table.
Okay.
Add up together.
So China market is one of the reasons why you collaborate with Chinese investors.
It's complicated in China. The volumes are much higher. The margins are probably smaller. And the pathway into the healthcare system is more complicated, but the size of the market is a big factor.
So what unique challenges you can see in navigating that Chinese environment?
It's partly understanding the healthcare system and the Chinese FDA, the sort of the regulatory process, and understanding how medical procedures are paid for in China. A lot of it is private insurance. There's a lot of poor people who just don't get healthcare. And so finding the sweet spot inside of that ecosystem is going to be a challenge for us. This procedure could be inexpensive enough to be offered in a rural clinic to poor people. And there are lots of poor people in China with kidney stones. And most of them right now have very bad health outcomes because there's no access for them. So it's important there. We have similar interest in India, same kind of population demographics, and the majority are very poor, and yet they have kidney stones and they suffer badly. So if we can bring a low-cost procedure that's safe and effective, we can save lots and lots of lives.
I wish I can see Avvio coming to China in the near future.
Everything is on the roadmap.
That's terrific. So my last question, Professor, so talk about Theresa. Theresa is a distinguished Chinese VC partner, not only invested in Avvio, but also serves on its board. So could you share the story of your collaboration and how this relationship came to be?
It started, I think, by coincidence. I happened to be in China. I was in Beijing visiting some Stanford alumni and also looking to meet some new investors. And this was 2018, summertime. And a person I knew here who was alumni of Peking University and was helping us find some investors, I got a WeChat message on the last day I was in town and asked if I could come into Beijing for a meeting. The traffic and logistics made that impossible, and there was more WeChat going on, I'm sure, but your team came out to my hotel. Some people inside of it were interested in the company and the technology. I don't actually know why exactly. It could well be that someone in the company or in the organization has had a kidney stone recently or has a family member with a kidney stone, because that motivates interest in the company. It does seem like about half of our investors have a close family member with kidney stone problems. So conversation started, there was emails and more travel. I think I visited twice again in the fall and the following year.
I'm so impressed that American startup, the whole management team is using WeChat. And Tom answered message during the midnight. So super responsive. Yeah.
So, but it was a year and a half of due diligence before. So I said 20. I think it was 2019 actually. Now that I think about it, but there was a lot. No, it was 2018. I think.
The first
meeting. So there was a lot of conversation, a lot of questions, lots of due diligence. There was tons and tons of homework for us from the team. And it was healthy for us actually to be asked those hard questions because it forced us to develop answers and models and plans that we weren't ready for, and it made us stronger. And then we finally closed the Series B financing and launched our clinical trial in the U.S. and things have been great. Raised a lot more money since then.
Great collaboration.
Yeah, but the investment was really the catalyst for what has become a lot of fundraising. If that hadn't happened, we would not be here today.
I still remember we kind of got onto so many calls and try to, talk to different investors, share our thoughts. I think, all based on our trust onto this company and to you.
Yeah, they shared their due diligence packet with other investors while I was trying to raise the additional money for the next 2 years. And that was very helpful.
Thank you for saying that.
So Theresa and her team brought very important investment to this company.
And credibility and support.
Yeah, and what unique insights or values, except for the money side? So does Theresa bring? I'm curious.
I think we learned a lot about the way the products might be launched in the China market. We were introduced to a lot of individuals in China who could help explain what the regulatory path was and how the hospitals look at products like this. And, I think also just the very tough questions about the full business model for our product in the U.S., the laser product. Your team forced Ben Zadek and I, Ben was our CFO at the time, to build a comprehensive business model for how the revenue and reimbursements and costs and margins, all that would work out. And, Ben was qualified to do that work, but we didn't. It was a bit early for us to do all of that detailed analysis, and it was because of their questions and that we carried out that exercise, and we learned a lot from that.
The great investors make
So
the
they were
company
tortured before they talked to more.
Theresa told me, you are now launching a fund focused on deep tech in Silicon Valley. So could you share your vision for how this fund will operate and elaborate on the unique strengths and advantages that your GP team brings?
We have several ideas, but I think a key part of our operation will be to keep an eye on the flow of good ideas and good talent through programs like the biodesign program at Stanford and through the Silicon Tech Venture program, and try to be in a position to spot the right combinations of idea and people early. So it'll be looking and watching. We'll use our judgment, the two of us plus others, to look at ideas and technologies and try to make early investment decisions.
So you mainly will invest in the early stage.
I think it will be like a multi-stage. From ticket size or fund allocation size, we may invest more in the growth stage so that the cash flow is more predictable and the risk tolerance is more controllable. But it always, in the early stage, that you can find the true home run and find the real star. And Stanford is such a great, treasure island that we can explore and try to spot those great ideas.
And I think my role will be in that, the sourcing of early ideas. That'll be my main contribution, I think.
I'm very interested in that. Who wants to start?
Let's talk more.
Let's talk more after the meeting.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, that sounds great. So, lastly, any advice for Chinese investors looking to invest in Silicon Valley?
It's tricky right now with the politics and everything. We have a new president who's doing crazy things every day. I would encourage people to be careful right now. But I think the investments in the West are still very compelling. There are great opportunities. But pay close attention to any regulations that emerge over the next year or so. And maybe be a little patient with us here in the U.S. We do have an orderly process of changing leadership every 4 years. And even on a 2-year cycle with the next midterm election, there will be a change in authority, I think. Usually the the party that lost in the presidential election gained some ground in the midterm, and it wouldn't take much to get to a different posture in the Congress. So I think we have about a year of chaos ahead of us, and then it'll calm down and might change direction again.
Just to be patient.
Yeah, a little bit, and don't overreact. And you know, there are institutions that have a long history facing the eastern part of the world, and like Stanford, for example, we're 130 years old. We've had partners in China and Asia for the whole time. The next 4 years are going to be a little weird, but we're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sure, my
thank
pleasure.
you, Professor. So,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for your time and
No, my
thanks
pleasure.
for
Hope
everything.
this was, I hope you
learned
got good questions answered. And,
Yeah, I learned a lot. Welcome
so-
to Singapore.
yes, I would love to come. It's been 8 years since my last trip to Singapore.
Oh, you should come then.
I know, I really enjoyed it. I've been there 3 or 4 times and would love to come again.
Yes,
because
Yeah.
I
We
don't
go
want to
together.
be late for the graduation.
Yeah.
Don't want to miss your own graduation.
Okay.
No, not at all.
您现在已经在硅谷深耕，大概有8年的时间了。早期的时候也投了很多人工智能和半导体的项目。那在投人工智能、半导体这种硬科技项目的时候，和这个投医疗科技，他们在逻辑上有什么样的不同？
其实做药跟做医疗器械或者医疗科技是很不一样的2种投资方式。虽然都是医疗赛道，但是呢，医疗科技其实跟深科技是更接近的。基本上你要看底层逻辑，这个技术是不是有突破性，它的技术壁垒有多高，然后呢，它的整个市场的这个规模有多大，然后它发展起来的速度、时间表、路线图，大概是什么样的一个进程？他们最不同的可能就是退出方式，对，一个是以 IPO 为主，并购为辅，另一个是以并购为主 ，IPO 为辅是这样的方式。
做过投资的人都知道，其实，在医疗科技领域的投资前期真的是非常烧钱，因为它无论是做研究，还是要去做一些临床，找到一些测试者，我觉得这个都是非常耗时和耗力的，需要等待的时间更长一点要有耐心。
刚才说像医疗器械、MedTech 这些方向，那这一段呢，相比之下，因为它是以并购为主的退出，所以它的研发期相对要短一点儿 ，FDA 的审批也会快一些。但是呢，要是做药的大家都知道 FDA 至少你要走3期，
所以其实企业在投资这些新项目的时候，冒的风险是非常大的，因为它也不能保证一定成功，但是它又确实是要投入很大的精力和资本进去的。那么在这个时候，当然就需要一个很良好的这个知识产权保护的这样的一个环境这一点我觉得也是非常appreciate 这个美国的这样的一个环境的。所以有时候你看一个现象的产生，它不仅仅是某一个个体促成了这个现象的产生，而是整一个生态环境造就了这样一个现象的产生，包括我们的硅谷文化所以我觉得跟您交流也确实学到了很多。那么Avvio呢，它未来的这个推出方式也是像您所说的这样，可能会寻求并购的方式去推出吗？
它其实是有不同的选择，因为现在的这个 CEO 呢，他是一个非常资深的 CEO， 他曾经在3个不同的医疗器械公司做过 CEO， 他有经验，对于商业化各方面都是有过很多实操经验的，所以对于这样就是成熟的 CEO 来讲，其实你就有不同的选项。那如果是那种 engineer 出身的或者学者型的 CEO 大概率就是直接并购退出。而他们呢是既可以并购退出，如果一直自己做这个商业化的拓展，能够把这个收入一路做起来，能够很快的成长，那他也有可能成为一个独立上市的独角兽这个大家也是非常有期待的。
硅谷依然是当今技术革命的前沿。如果中国的投资者
可以有全球的视野和当地的资源，我相信一定能够把握这一前沿的巨大机遇。
下期对话硅谷风险投资家 Theresa， 听一听资本与技术完美碰撞演绎的传奇故事。